My name is Rachel Morgan, and for 34 years, I believed being the responsible one would eventually be enough. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I've built a stable life for myself, one brick at a time. I'm a senior account manager at a mid-sized tech firm, the kind of job that comes with 12-hour days, too many emails, and a tight smile when people call you overachiever. My apartment is small but tidy. I meal prep on Sundays. I floss. I'm the kind of woman who shows up, who remembers birthdays, who sends just checking in texts and means them. I used to think that was love, that if you just kept showing up, eventually someone would show up for you too. Growing up, my younger sister Chloe was always the one who lit up rooms. She had that wild magnetic energy people mistake for charm. Jobs came and went. So did apartments, friends, boyfriends, cars. Everything in her life was temporary, except her ability to walk away from every mess without carrying it. I, on the other hand, stayed. I stayed and swept up after her. When Dad's back went out and he had to leave his job at the tool shop, I was the one who quietly started transferring money into their account. When Mom's car broke down and they couldn't afford a new one, I dipped into my savings and surprised them with a used Camry. I paid their gas bill in the winter, mailed them vitamins when COVID hit, and even figured out how to refinance their mortgage when they were 3 months behind. They never asked. I never asked for thanks. That's just what family does, right? It wasn't that I didn't love them, I did. Fiercely, even. But there's a certain kind of quiet heartbreak in being dependable. People stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a solution. And I let it happen, year after year, without complaint. The first crack in the glass came when Dad called one Sunday and asked if I could help digitize some of their paperwork. "We're getting old," he joked. "You know how messy your mother is with this stuff." So I came over, sat at the dining room table with a cup of lukewarm Folgers, and started flipping through files. That's when I saw it. A manila folder, slightly worn, marked estate plan and last will. I hesitated. I'm not the type to snoop. But something in my gut twisted an ache I couldn't name. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe fear. I opened the folder. I read every line. Slowly, carefully. By the time I reached the last page, I was trembling. The house, the savings, the car, the life insurance. Every asset my parents had. Everything was going to Chloe. My name appeared only once. We leave our love and gratitude to both our daughters. That's it. No explanation. No thank you. No mention of the thousands I had spent or the weekends I gave up. No nod to the time I stayed up all night, helping Dad avoid foreclosure, or the fact that I was the one who drove Mom to and from physical therapy for 3 months. It was like I'd never existed. I stared at the paper throat, tight hands numb. I had always assumed naively that what I gave would be remembered. Maybe not celebrated, but at least acknowledged. But now I knew I wasn't their daughter. I was their crutch. Dad walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. "You still scanning those papers?" Rach, he asked. I looked up. "Did you really see this?" His face flickered. Just for a moment. Then came the sigh. That sigh. I know I'd heard it asking why Chloe got a bigger slice of cake. The sign that said, "You didn't get it." Not even an apology. I placed the folder back down. It didn't say anything, but inside me, something started. And for the first time, didn't show up the following Saturday. Didn't refill prescriptions or order groceries. I went quiet. They didn't notice. Not for 2 weeks. Not one text. Not one call. Eventually, a message came through. From Mom: "Hey sweetie, the heater's acting weird again. Can you stop by before the weekend? Thanks, love you." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just the usual assumption that I'd show up like a handyman with a smile. I stared at the message for a long time before typing, "Sorry, you'll need to call someone else." 1 minute later, Dad texted, "Don't be dramatic. You've got your life together. We didn't think you needed anything from the will." That was the moment I understood something deep and ugly. To them, being responsible meant I didn't deserve anything. Being the one who held the family together didn't earn me love, it exempted me from it. That's when I decided. No more. The silence didn't last long. After I shut them out, the messages came like clockwork. First subtle, then pointed, then desperate. Mom's second message came that Thursday evening. We're a little behind on the electricity this month. Not asking for anything, just letting you know. Love you. It wasn't a request. It was bait. The same kind of manipulation she'd always used when we were kids, wrapped in guilt, framed as just informing, but always laced with the expectation that I'd act. I deleted it. Then came Dad's call. No voicemail this time, just a missed call sitting in my log like a silent reminder. You know what to do. But I didn't do it. I didn't send the money. I didn't Venmo a grocery transfer. I didn't schedule their prescription refills or call their utility provider pretending to be my mom again so she wouldn't get late fees. I just sat still and waited. Then, right on cue, Chloe texted. Mom says you're acting weird. Can you chill out? This isn't a big deal. Not a big deal. I blinked at the screen, my fingers numb on the keyboard. This was the girl who used my credit card to book a spontaneous trip to Vegas and vanished for 10 days. The same Chloe who once called me crying from Colorado, stranded and broke, and I wired her my entire rent money without hesitation. I texted back, then pay the mortgage. She replied instantly with a laughing emoji. Then girl, I can't afford that. That's your thing. My hands trembled. My jaw locked. That was it. That was the final puzzle piece snapping into place. To them, my value wasn't love, it was utility. Responsibility wasn't something I earned respect for. It was just my assigned role. And they had never, not once, expected me to need anything in return. They'd spent years standing on my back, and the moment I stood up, they got angry. The ground had moved. So I didn't stand anymore. I walked away. I stopped answering texts, blocked Dad's number, muted Mom's. I stopped checking Chloe's stories entirely. There was no point. She'd still be posting brunch mimosas and daydream quotes while I fought insurance appeals on Mom's behalf. Only now I didn't fight. And the house, let them call a contractor. Let Chloe cover the repair bills. Let someone else carry the weight for once. 3 days into my silence, the guilt parade began. It started small. A voicemail from Mom late at night. Your father's been coughing again. Not saying it's serious, but you know how these things go. We'd feel better if you came by. No pressure, honey. Just, love you. The same voice she used when I was 8, and she didn't want me to cry during dentist visits. Gentle, controlled, sweet but sharp underneath. Then came Dad again. Another missed call. No message. Just the implication. Then Chloe. They're worried sick, Rach. You know Mom's blood pressure is through the roof when she's stressed. Can you stop being selfish and just come talk to them? There it was again. Selfish. That word like a familiar knife. Used so casually, so precisely to slice into everything I'd done it, without acknowledging it. I opened the text thread. I stared at her message. And I typed out a response. I never sent. Was I selfish when I skipped New York because you wanted your bachelorette weekend in Napa? Was I selfish when I drained my savings for Dad's hospital copays? When I left work 3 days in a row to help Mom recover from surgery while you were partying in Palm Springs? I didn't send it. Not because it wasn't true, because it wouldn't matter. They didn't hear what I had done, only what I hadn't done lately. And lately I hadn't picked up the slack. I hadn't reminded them about the property tax. I hadn't sent an Amazon box of vitamins and meal replacement shakes. I hadn't driven an hour and a half to fix the thermostat or refill the fridge or unclog the kitchen sink, and that made me useless. The moment the mule stopped walking, the riders got furious. But what they didn't realize is I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. When I didn't come crawling back, they panicked. And panic made them bold. It was a cold Saturday morning, the kind of morning when even the sun looked tired. I was halfway through reheating coffee in my favorite mug when my building's front desk called. "Hi, Miss Morgan. There are two people downstairs saying they're your parents. They're asking to come up." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" They said it's urgent. They look determined. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, felt the old reflex rise in my throat, the urge to smooth everything over, to give in, to be the good daughter again. But I swallowed it. "Please don't let them up," I said quietly. "Tell them I'm not available." There was a pause. "Yes, ma'am. We'll let them know." But of course they didn't leave. 10 minutes later, "Mom, we're downstairs. Please open the door." 5 minutes after that, "Dad, we just want to talk. Be reasonable." And then Chloe, "Seriously, you're making Mom wait in the cold like this. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Nothing. What's wrong is that they thought this was still about hurt feelings. It wasn't. It was about closure." I grabbed my keys, pulled on a sweatshirt, and went downstairs. And there they were. Mom in pearl earrings, her coat buttoned too high, like she was trying to look fragile. Dad was standing, stiff arms folded across his chest, the same way he used to stand in the garage when he didn't know how to fix something. Chloe was X'd with them, arms crossed and smirking like she was about to win a debate she hadn't earned. I opened the door just wide enough to block the frame. Mom stepped forward first, her voice already trembling. "Sweetheart, we just need 5 minutes. That's all." "No," I said calmly. "You need money. That's all." She blinked as if I'd slapped her. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither is leaving your daughter out of your will," I said. "Let's call it even." Dad's jaw clenched the way it always did when he was about to say something he'd regret, but wouldn't apologize for. He took a half step forward, voice low. "We didn't come here to argue." "No," I replied. "You came here to guilt me. Again. You came here thinking that showing up in person would make me fold like always, that I'd reach for my checkbook, not my boundaries." Mom's face crumpled. "Rachel, please," I cut her off. "Ask Chloe." Chloe scoffed. "Don't drag me into this. You're already in it." I snapped, finally losing that last thread of calm. "You got the house. You got the savings. You got the promise of everything. So why am I still the one you all expect to clean up the mess?" No one answered. Because what could they say? There were no lies left to hide behind, just the raw, ugly truth. They didn't expect me to receive anything, because I wasn't supposed to need anything. I was just supposed to carry. I leaned against the frame of the door. Arms crossed. Calm. Solid. "You raised me to believe family means love," I said. "But what you meant was leverage. I was good when I was giving. Useful when I was quiet. And now that I've stopped paying for love, you're standing on my doorstep in the cold because you've run out of excuses, and the bills are due." Mom's lip trembled. Dad looked away. And Chloe, ever the performer, rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." I smiled. "Number, I'm done." And I closed the door. The sound was soft, final. No shouting. No slamming. Just a click of brass against wood that felt like drawing a line in permanent ink. I stood there for a few seconds, breathing. Heart pounding, but steady. For once, it didn't feel like guilt. It felt like freedom. But I should have known it wouldn't end at my doorstep. The next attack wasn't through the front door, it was through Facebook. Monday morning, I was sipping coffee at my desk when a coworker tagged me in a post and messaged, "Hey, is everything okay with your family?" My stomach dropped. I opened the app, and there it was. Mom's status. "Sometimes the child you raise with the most love is the one who forgets it first. Please pray for this broken family." A 10-year-old photo attached, one I'd taken, paid for, and scheduled. We were all smiling on a hiking trail in Mount Rainier. Chloe in the middle. I off to the side. The same placement we'd always occupied in their hearts. The comments were a familiar chorus. "You were such good parents. I'm so sorry. Some children forget where they came from." By noon, Dad chimed in too, aided our daughter with everything she needed, thought she'd be there for us in our later years, but she's chosen to turn her back. Just heartbreaking. And then, of course, he tagged me. They weren't just spreading lies. They were casting me as the villain in a story they'd written to protect themselves. And Chloe. She posted a heavily filtered photo of her and Mom on the porch swing arms, looped together like an inspirational greeting card. Caption: She doesn't deserve this. None of them do. But I'll keep showing up even when others don't. Because that's what family means. No names, no direct quotes. Just enough innuendo to ensure everyone knew exactly who the others were. I stared at my screen in disbelief. I had kept my silence. I hadn't posted the will. I hadn't named names or flung receipts. I had kept it private. But they wanted a war. So that night I wrote a post of my own. Not petty, not emotional, just the truth. For 5 years, I financially supported my parents every month without fail. I paid their mortgage, their utilities, their groceries. I handled repairs. I took days off work to care for them. I did it because I love them. I found out by accident that I'd been written out of their will. No explanation. No conversation. Everything was going to my sister, who has never contributed a cent or a second to their care. I'm no longer available for silent sacrifices. If that makes me selfish in their eyes, so be it. But I will no longer buy affection I never truly received. I hit post, and for the first time in weeks I exhaled. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped hiding. The messages that followed were fast and fierce. Some were kind. A former college roommate messaged, "I've always admired how much you did for them. Proud of you for standing up." A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years DM'd me, "I'm not surprised." I always wondered why Chloe never had a job, but somehow got the new car. But not everyone was supportive. One of Mom's church friends commented, "I don't know what happened, but this isn't how good daughters behave." Chloe predictably wasn't done. She took to Instagram, careful not to mention my name, but filled her stories with obvious jabs, cropped screenshots of my post. A photo of her hugging Mom captioned, "Some people think money makes them better. I just think it makes them colder." Then came the final blow. She posted a Venmo screenshot. A single payment, $1,000 sent to Mom and Dad with the note, "Because love doesn't skip payments." The comments poured in, "You're amazing, Chloe. Your parents are lucky to have one daughter who cares. I wish my kids were like you." I couldn't even breathe. One grand gesture, $1,000 stunt, and suddenly she was the savior. The heroine. Never mind that I'd paid tens of thousands across 5 years. That I was the one who bought the Camry she now drove. That I'd sacrificed vacations, sleep, and years of my life. Optics beat reality every time. And Chloe, she always looked better doing less. But still, I said nothing. Until the letter arrived. An actual letter. Handwritten. Like a last act in a tragic play. It was from Mom. "Dear Rachel, we're devastated that you've chosen to turn your back on this family over something so minor. The will can be changed, you know that. But your behavior, that will leave a mark. Your sister is trying to help us through this. She's heartbroken too, though she hides it well. We want to move forward as a family, but you need to apologize. Publicly. Until then, we're cutting contact for our emotional well-being." They wanted an apology. After everything, they wanted me to say sorry, to make it easier for them to pretend they weren't wrong. That night, I sat in my living room, the letter in one hand, a match in the other. I didn't burn it. But I didn't reply either. The envelope stayed on my bookshelf for weeks. I left it there as a reminder not of pain, but of truth. A truth they refused to see. Because here's what no one tells you sometimes. The truth isn't enough. People don't want facts, they want comfort. They want their version of the story to stay intact, even if it means erasing you from it. They didn't want to hear how many times I bailed them out. They didn't want to acknowledge the difference between presence and performance. What they wanted was for me to crawl back and pretend nothing had happened, smile politely, pay the bills, disappear again behind Chloe's halo. But I was done auditioning, and then the world got quiet again. No more Facebook posts, no new texts, just an eerie silence like the eye of a storm I hadn't been warned about. For a week, I thought maybe they'd finally gotten the message. Then one Friday evening, Ava, a coworker in HR, stopped by my cubicle holding her phone. "Rachel," she whispered awkwardly, "I think you should see this." It was Chloe's new post, a video. She was in the backyard of the house, my parents' house. The caption read, "Cleaning up what others left behind FIO. We don't give up on family." The camera panned to Mom, sitting on a folding chair, bundled in a blanket like a frail widow in a Lifetime movie. Chloe's voice was cheerful bright. "She's had a hard week, y'all," she said on camera, squeezing Mom's shoulder. But I told her some of us don't walk away when things get hard. The comments were unrelenting. "Where's the older sister? No help, no heart. This generation's so ungrateful. Bless you, Chloe. You're doing God's work." I stared at the video pulse rising. They weren't just rewriting history. They were painting portraits of it, staged, filtered, emotionally manipulated. And I had to sit there while the people who knew the least about our story wrote their ending for it. I turned off my screen. I didn't respond. Because I finally understood this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. It was a system I'd been born into, where my value was measured in how much I could absorb quietly. Every time I spoke up, they twisted the knife just enough to make me second-guess myself. They didn't want peace. They wanted compliance. But silence isn't love. And guilt isn't loyalty. Still, the final twist came from somewhere I didn't expect. A certified letter showed up at my door the following week from a local real estate attorney. I almost didn't open it. Inside was a formal notice the house was in pre-foreclosure. Chloe had missed 2 payments. My parents hadn't stepped in. In the margin of the letter was a handwritten note from my dad. "This is where your choices led. I hope you're proud." No signature, no emotion, just a weapon made of paper. My chest tightened, but not with sadness. It was anger, clean and cold and deserved, because I had warned them. I had given them every tool to stay afloat, and they had gambled it all on the daughter who had never carried anything heavier than her purse. They weren't losing the house because I walked away. They were losing it because they had leaned on a crutch for so long they never learned how to walk on their own. Still, for one irrational second, I almost reached for my checkbook. The instinct ran that deep. But instead I closed the letter, set it on the table, and picked up my phone. This time I posted everything. Not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. I uploaded screenshots carefully redacted of the will, the payment receipts, and the Venmo logs from the last 5 years. My caption was short: "This will be my final statement. I supported my parents alone for years while my sister lived freely. I gave without asking, sacrificed without recognition. I was written out of their will without a conversation. I chose silence to protect them, even when they dragged me through the mud. But lies don't deserve protection, and I refuse to apologize for setting down the weight they chose not to carry. I won't be spoken for anymore." It went viral, at least in the quiet corners of my world. Coworkers, former classmates, neighbors from back home, people I hadn't spoken to in years wrote to me in private. "I saw what you posted. I believe you. Same thing happened with my family. Thank you for saying it." Even my Aunt Donna, Mom's older sister, commented publicly, "I always knew Chloe was the favorite. I just didn't know it came at your expense." But the message that hit hardest came from someone I barely remembered. A girl named Claire who went to high school with Chloe. We'd never spoken more than a few words back then. She messaged me, "Your sister bullied me all through junior year. I told your mom once. She said Chloe has a big personality, not everyone can handle that." I always wondered how she treated her own family. Now I know. I'm sorry. And thank you, I cried. Not because of the past, but because someone somewhere finally saw it. That night, Chloe posted a black screen to her story. Just one word, betrayal, followed by a broken heart emoji. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. They weren't grieving the loss of me. They were grieving the loss of their grip on me. And they wanted the world to think that was the same thing. It wasn't. Later that week, I walked by the bank near my apartment and saw a flyer for a new condo development going up near the edge of the city. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine something bigger, something just for me. A space that didn't smell like obligation. A home that didn't echo with resentment. A future that didn't include being the family's default fixer-planner and financier. I reached for the brochure. It was small, but it was a start. It's been 6 months since I walked away. 6 months since the last time I answered a call from my parents, or checked Chloe's social media, or felt the reflexive guilt that used to live just under my skin. The house was sold. Not foreclosed, just barely salvaged through a quick, desperate sale. Chloe moved in with some guy in Arizona who owns a food truck and sells healing crystals at pop-up markets. Mom and Dad downsized to a tiny rental on the outskirts of town. No more three-bedroom house. No more backyard parties. No more illusion. They didn't tell me. I found out from a neighbor who still sends me Christmas cards. And me, I bought the condo. It's not fancy. It doesn't have granite countertops or a wine fridge or floor-to-ceiling windows. But it's mine. And when I walk in after a long day, I don't brace for passive-aggressive remarks or unpaid bills left on the table. I sit on my couch, kick off my shoes, and exist fully and quietly. For the first time, I don't feel like I have to earn being loved. I've built new rituals. I joined a weekend hiking group. I signed up for a ceramics class, even though I'm terrible at it. I laugh more, sleep better. I even started dating someone gently slowly without panic or expectation. His name is Jared, and he's kind in the quiet ways that matter, always on time, always asks how my day was, never tries to fix me. The other day, I told him the whole story. From the money, to the will, to the letter that nearly made me crack. When I finished, I waited for that familiar look, sympathy wrapped in discomfort. Instead, he said, "You didn't lose them. You just stopped holding them up." And he was right. People act like cutting off family is selfish. But the truth is, sometimes staying is the selfish act because it allows people to keep hurting you without consequence. Walking away wasn't easy. It never is. But I finally realized something I wish I'd known 20 years ago. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Not even your parents. Not even your sister. Especially not the people who never once offered you a match. There are still hard days. Days when I see a dad and daughter in the grocery store and feel something ache inside me. Days when I smell my mom's favorite cinnamon shampoo on someone else and have to step outside to breathe. But then I remember who I used to be. The woman who showed up for everyone but herself. And I whisper, thank you to her. For surviving. For holding on long enough for me to be born from her ashes. Now I don't chase. I don't explain. I don't apologize. I build. And one day, if I ever have a daughter of my own, I'll teach her that love isn't something you prove, it's something you protect. Starting with yourself. Because in the end, I wasn't written out of the will. I wrote myself out of the story they kept trying to trap me in. And that was the beginning of everything. For most of my life, I believed that love meant sacrifice, quiet, unseen, and constant. I played the part of the reliable daughter, the one who handled crises, paid bills, and carried burdens no one else wanted to touch. I did it without asking for thanks, because somewhere along the line I was taught that needing acknowledgement made me selfish. That being chosen last was still being chosen. But being written out of my parents will forced me to confront a truth I'd been avoiding for years. I was never truly in the picture. I was a utility, not a daughter. And once I stopped being useful, I became disposable. Walking away wasn't revenge. It was survival. It was reclaiming a self I hadn't let exist for far too long. People called me cold, heartless, ungrateful. But what they didn't see were the years of silence I endured, the money I gave without question, and the way I dimmed myself so others could shine. This journey taught me that boundaries are not betrayals. That family, while important, does not get unconditional access to your soul if they continuously harm it. And most importantly, that walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally care about yourself. Healing hasn't been linear. There are still moments of grief, nostalgia, and that lingering what if, but they no longer control me. I've learned to grieve what I never had and be grateful for what I'm building. I share my story not to gain sympathy, but to offer permission to anyone quietly breaking under the weight of someone else's expectations. You are allowed to choose peace over loyalty, wholeness over guilt. You don't owe anyone your destruction, especially not the people who handed you the match. And that's not selfish, that's freedom.